Joining us now, one of the members of that bipartisan group, Democratic Senator Ben Ray Lujan of New Mexico.
Senator, so good to have you at the table. Let's start with the request that you're making of the Government Office of Accountability into the DOJ, an audit of the DOJ over their handling and release of these files. Do you believe at this point that the GAO is still operating as an independent entity?
Look, I believe the GAO is still operating as an independent entity. And I'll say this, is my Republican colleagues have been trying to get rid of the darn place. We need an independent scorekeeper to tell us what something costs, what something is, and what something is not. And sadly, right now, it's one of the few places where you can still get some facts associated with what policy is and what it's not.
You know, Pam Bondi has repeatedly defended the Department of Justice's compliance with the law that Congress passed, that the president signed. And obviously, I think we can all, anybody that, you know, can see, hear, touch, feel, or have heard, knows that that is actually not true because there was a deadline. The Department of Justice notably did not meet the deadline. So by virtue of that, they are not in compliance. What do you think you're going to find with this audit?
The question in this audit is abundantly clear. It's a very simple letter. There's 12 items on here that say you need to ask some answers and specific questions here. And what it's saying is, who did the Department of Justice appoint to do this? What did the Department of Justice tell them to do? Which political names did you tell the folks doing the work to cover up or protect them and not put them in? And why in the world, if this was done correctly, where the victim's name is not redacted? There was one mistake after another here, and so this is just very simple. And the work of my colleagues here, I just want to, say thank you to Senator Merkley and Senator Durbin and Senator Murkowski. This is bipartisan with the inquiries, and if I go back home and I talk to constituents, Democrats, Republicans have voted for Donald Trump as MAGA. They want to see what's going on here. And then the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. So there's too many questions back home.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. In fact, your Attorney General for the state, Raul Torres, did an op-ed and noted, "I want to be honest about the challenges ahead. Epstein has been dead for years. Zorro Ranch has changed ownership. Physical evidence may no longer exist, and the statute of limitations has likely run out on many potential offenses. These are real obstacles, and survivors deserve to hear them stated plainly. But we will follow the evidence wherever it leads and leave no credible question unexplored. At the conclusion of our investigation, we will issue a full public report. The people of New Mexico and those who were harmed are entitled to a complete and transparent accounting of what we found and what we did not." This has now been bought and is in the process of transforming into something, I guess. What is your understanding about this ranch? Why the feds stopped the investigation regarding the ranch earlier on when Epstein was alive? What do you know about it and the sale and what's going to happen to it? And because a lot of bad things happened here. And as the Attorney General noted, it requires an investigation so people understand exactly what happened.
Well, two things are happening right now, Michael, in New Mexico. One, the Attorney General of New Mexico, Raul Torres, is moving forward with that investigation. Number two, the New Mexico State Legislature, under the leadership of State Representative Andrea Romero, working with the governor of the state, Michelle Lujan Grisham, they passed legislation to create the Truth Commission. So there's two different sets of eyes that are going to be looking at what happened in Zorro. Now, what I can say with my review of those unredacted files when I went to the Department of Justice, there's no question that there were disturbing, disgusting, illegal acts that were taking place. And even if you look at the redacted part, the victim in Florida who flew maybe to New York and then went to New Mexico, and then there's victim after victim that landed up in New Mexico. There's even photos that are in the unredacted version. It doesn't show who's in them, but it's showing what was going on in New Mexico. And quite honestly, Michael, there's no good reason. There's no good reason why the Department of Justice should have stopped investigating this. Everyone should have been looking at this. They have a private airstrip. They were using commercial space as well. People were driving in and out. I mean, it's just disgusting what was going on there. and the fact that someone decided to pull back to protect some people is what I'm guessing. There's a question that I have about who was covering up for whom and who got the benefit here. But it's just disgusting.
Well, and you also start to see how there was a patchwork happening here that made it very difficult for these survivors to actually find justice. For one thing, New Mexico simply had at the time different laws on the books that changed statute of limitations. In addition to that, the investigation doesn't open in New Mexico until 2019, after the statutes of limitations had expired for some crimes. That investigation was shut down at the urging of federal authorities in New York, who were building their own multi-state case, but left the ranch largely unexamined. I mean, you just see systematic failure after systematic failure, right? The fact that New Mexico was not able to launch their own investigation back in 2019 because of what was happening in New York, because of what had happened in Florida, it all begins to, I don't know, it begs more questions than it offers answers.
Conspiracy theory lives.
Absolutely correct. There are only more questions associated with why this thing got trampled on, if you will, or why New Mexico was told you need to stay out of this. And in the end, it's the victims that no one was looking after when all of this stuff was going on as well. Again, if you go and you read these files for yourself, whether they're the redacted or the unredacted version, New Mexico is mentioned in there, Zorro Ranch is mentioned in there, the flights going in that way, on the private airstrip, the commercial airline. I mean, there's just no question the stuff that was going on there.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Can I get your thoughts on Greg Bovino? We've now heard that he has plans to retire at the end of the month. This is from Axios. Gregory Bovino, the Border Patrol official who became the face of the Trump administration's aggressive immigration crackdown, plans to retire at the end of March, he told Breitbart Texas. Didn't know Breitbart had local outlets. Bovino led President Trump's immigration operations in Minnesota, but was sidelined after federal agents killed 2 U.S. citizens. He returned to his prior role in El Centro, California. Are there questions for Greg Bovino?
Well, look, first, good riddance. He's eligible for retirement like in a year. But why isn't anybody investigating the 2 people that got killed, that got murdered, American citizens, while he was in charge? And by the way, Secretary Noem was in charge as well. And now the 2 of them just find another job, decide that they're going to retire, and everything goes away? BS. I need to be careful with my language, Simone, but BS to that. That is just ridiculous. And again, another cover-up. My parents, growing up, they told me, the lie's bad, but the cover-up's worse.
Come on.
And everything that we're seeing right now, it's one set of cover-ups after another, questions that are not being answered. And if this guy was there, what was he telling these agents? We now know that they were hiring agents without training them. There's at least 3 Proud Boys that we know that work with ICE now. There might be others as well.